Salvete, Discipuli. Picking up from where we left off last time, the Helvetians are on the move, and Caesar will mobilize in response. Extremum Oppidum alabrogum est proximumque Helvetiorum finibus Genaua. Geneva is the farthest village of the Allobroges. Okay, so grammatically, look what's going on here. Geneva is, okay, what Geneva is actually going to be two things. One thing is it is the extremum Oppidum, the farthest village, of whom, genitive plural, Allobrogum. But it's also something else. Genaua est proximum, the nearest. What is it? The nearest understood village. It is the nearest village, Helvetiorum finibus, to the borders of the Helvetians. Dative plural, finibus, genitive plural, Helvetiorum. Ex eo Oppido pons ad Helvetios pertinet. From that town, understood Geneva, what is there? There's a pons, which pertinet ad Helvetios. A bridge reaches to the Helvetians. Now, we're going to learn in a future lesson that one important military action is the destruction of bridges when you want to stop the movement of peoples. Allabrogibus sesse vel persuasuros quod nondum bono animo in populum Romanum viderentur, extimabant vel vi coacturos ut per suos fines eos ire paterentur. Now, wow, that's quite a sentence, okay? So we're going to unpack this piece by piece. But before we begin, it's always well worth the trouble, first of all, reading a sentence all the way through. Just make note before we actually start reading, where were the verbs, okay? The verbs are extimabant, viderentur, and paterentur. Okay, so those are the actual main verbs. We're going to learn that extimabant is the main verb of the entire sentence. Okay, the other verbs here are verbs that are functioning inside of clauses. Also, giving you a little sneak peek into something. Look for repetitions. Okay, repetitions are a window into grammatical features well worth noting as you're translating. We have well here, and we have well here, okay? On its own, the word well means or. When you have the repetition, well followed by another well, we're going to translate it as either or, okay? And you're going to notice following this well, we have a future participle. Following the other one, we have another future participle, okay? So let's dig in. They were thinking, extimabant, okay? Now, a verb like thinking, speaking, proclaiming, or feeling, those verbs can generate what we call an indirect statement, okay? So just anticipating, they were thinking that something either happened or that something is about to happen. And that's what we're going to have here with these future participles. Remember that with an indirect statement, you're going to have in the substance of the indirect statement, accusatives can be subjects, and also we're going to have infinitives be the main verbs. We might still have clauses, which is what we're going to have here. So, what were they thinking? They were thinking that they. Okay, so say is actually the word that we're picking up with they. There is no word corresponding to that in Latin with an indirect statement. It's convenient to add it for English. So they were thinking that they, what were they thinking that they would do? Well, here it comes. They were thinking that they would either do this or do that. Okay, so that's what this whole sentence is going to be. They were thinking that they would, in this case, either persuade the Allobroges, okay, persuasuros, future participle, that they either are about to persuade or would persuade. They were thinking that they would either persuade, and look, alabrogibus is the object of persuasuros. This verb takes a dative object, okay? So again, they were thinking that they would either persuade the alabroges. Why were they thinking that they could persuade the alabroges? Well, all of this stuff here, quod nondum bono animo in populum Romanum viderentur, okay, all of this is the reason they believe they have a shot at persuading the alabroges. Here's why. Because, quod just means because they seemed, okay? This verb means to see, but in the passive, it's basically like a quasi-deponent of sorts, and it can take on the meaning to seem, okay? So the alabroges they seemed nondum, not yet. What did they seem not yet to be? Bono animo, in a good spirit. Now that means to be favorable towards somebody, because they seemed not yet to be in a good spirit towards whom? In populum Romanum, literally into the Roman people, or like against the Roman people. So the idea here is they know that the alabroges don't like the Romans, okay? And that means maybe they can be persuaded to do something. And that thing, of course, is to let them pass through their territory in this migration, okay? So the other thing they were thinking, extimabant, or, okay, here's the other thing they were thinking, or we coacturos, that they would compel them by force, okay, so that they would be about to compel. So say is again being understood that they were about to compel, understood them, okay, by force, we, okay, this is the ablative singular of this noun vis. The accusative is vim, from which we get like vim and vigor. So they were thinking that they would do this, or that they would compel them by force. And here's what they were thinking they would compel them by force to do. Ut, in order that they might let them go. Paterentor, meaning to allow, okay? That they might allow or let them, ire, ellos, let them to go. Let them go where? Per suos fines, through their borders, okay? You might want to go back and review that whole sentence, okay? When you finally look at it piece by piece, it's pretty straightforward, but just imagine you are a Roman, by the way, reading this, okay? You're a native speaker of Latin. Alabrogibus, okay? All that your mind knows is that you have either just heard the ablative plural or the dative plural of this name for a people. They. Well, persuasoros, either about to persuade, because not yet in good spirit among the Roman people, they seemed extimabant. Okay, believe it or not, only when you get to extimabant does your native speaker, Latin-speaking mind understand what was going on here. Now your brain automatically converts all of this into that indirect statement, and then you're ready for the next piece, or that they were thinking they would do that stuff, okay? This is some really stylistic stuff, okay? This is not easy Latin, people. Omnibus rebus ad profectionem comparatis diem dicunt, qua die ad ripam Rodani omnes conveniant. They name a day, okay? So literally dicunt just means they say a day, okay? But basically they're picking a day, they're telling everybody what day it's going to be that we finally set out on our migration, okay? They name a day. What do they name a day for? Ad profectionem, for the setting out, okay? Now, omnibus rebus comparatis is going to be an ablative absolute, describing the circumstances in which they name a day for setting out. Literally, omnibus rebus comparatis, with all things having been prepared. Okay, so remember in earlier lessons, all the things that they were going to do prior to attempting this migration. Okay, trying to gather up as many carts and oxen and all the grain and making peace with nearby peoples. Okay, so omnibus rebus comparatis, with all these things having been prepared, they name a day for the setting out. Qua die, on which day. Okay, on which day, what did they do? Omnes conveniant. All are to gather. Where are they to gather? Ad ripam Rodani, at the bank of the Rhone. Okay. That day was, now this is a set of abbreviations that means literally ante diem quinque, okay, so before the day of the 5th kalends of April. And you actually count the kalends, which is the first day of April, okay? So counting the kalends and then 5 days backwards brings you to March 28th, okay? Now, they did not really have a system of counting years, okay? So when these two guys were consuls, so this is a little mini ablative absolute, okay? So literally with these guys being consuls, and the year that happened was 58 BCE. Now, this is quite a sentence, okay? So let's dig in. Caesari cum id nuntiatum esset, eos per provinciam nostram iter facere conari, maturat ab urbe proficisci et quam maximis potest itineribus in Galliam ulteriorem contendit et ad Genavam pervenit. We're going to start with a indirect statement again, okay? It literally is announced. This is an impersonal construction. Okay, so when it had been announced to Caesar, okay, cum here, not followed by an ablative, means when. So when it, cum id, was announced, had been announced, and this is subjunctive because you always have subjunctive after cum in this sense, okay? Caesari, dative, to Caesar. So when it had been announced to Caesar, namely, okay, and here's the indirect statement. Here's the information that was announced to Caesar. Okay? Literally, them to try to make a journey. Eos, conari, facere, iter. Okay? Now, converting this back into English, instead of saying when it was announced to Caesar, them to try to make a journey, is going to be something when it was announced to Caesar that they would try to make a journey. That they would try to make a journey where? Per provinciam nostram. You know that's something Caesar will never stand for, through our province. Okay, so this is basically setting the stage. Everything here earlier, this is going to set the stage for the things that Caesar is going to do. Okay, so having set the stage, what does he do? Maturat. He hurries, proficisci, to set out. Set out from where? Ab urbe, from the city. And what does he do? Quam maximis potest itineribus. With as many journeys as he can, he hurries to outer Gaul. Contendit in Galliam ulteriorem. Now, what does it mean with as many journeys as he can? What this means is he's going to basically have set up along what is called the cursus publicus, something like the Pony Express, okay? He's going to, with some people, they are going to like work horses almost to death and then like stop somewhere else, get some new horses that are fresh and just keep going. He's going to move as quickly as possible. And pervenit, he arrives ad Genavam. He arrives at Geneva. So what has Caesar now told the Roman people as he's writing this? He's basically presenting to them somebody who, the second there is a threat, look at it, look at what he's done. When it's announced, boom, maturat, contendit, pervenit. Okay, this is basically like Caesar's like typical thing. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Well, in this case, maturat, contendit, pervenit. Caesar is a man of action. That is what he is telling the Roman people.